no longer in this, oh, this is really important. You're no longer in this place of choosing things to nourish your body. Instead, you're making decisions based off of how you can punish your body. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Rise podcast. My name is Lauren Bongiorno, nationally board certified health coach and founder and CEO of Risely Health, where we help people and families impacted by type 1 diabetes take ownership over their lives so that they can transform with more freedom and confidence. Everyone has a different reason to be here. You might be seeking knowledge, support, or community, but at your core, I know that you long for something deeper. You're here for transformation. And that's what the Reclaim Your Rise podcast is all about. A quick reminder before we start the show that nothing you hear on the Reclaim Your Rise podcast should be a substitute for personalized professional medical advice. Please always consult your physician or other medical professional before making any changes to your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reclaim Your Rise. This is your host, Lauren Bongiorno, and you may be able to hear it in my slightly muffled, slightly hoarse voice, but we are currently doing an after hours, after dark recording apparently right now. It is 9:24 p.m. as I'm recording this, and you might be like, Lauren, why? And it is because, well, two things. One, I have a flight out tomorrow to Miami from New York for a work conference, and that is happening at 7 a.m. So that means I have to get up at 5, which means there is no time tomorrow to record this. But two, I was supposed to record this last week, and I sat down to do it and was looking over, what I wanted to share and just my outline, and I was like, it doesn't feel complete. Like I need to work this a little bit more. And I realized, when I do that, sometimes when I go to sit down and then I say, you know what, it's not ready yet. It's, normally because I care a lot about the topic, right? I feel like there needs to be so much intention behind the topic because it could be, a more sensitive one or one that requires just a little bit more, just like science or research that I want to, put into it. But ultimately, today we're having this open conversation about body image and weight loss goals for people living with type 1 diabetes. And maybe you don't feel this, but for me, I kind of feel this like responsibility to do this episode justice, and to understand that there are a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people depending on who you're talking to about weight loss, which we're going to get into in the episode. But we are here, we are recording the episode, and I truly believe that like what I landed on is what I meant to share with you guys. So backing up a little bit, the reason that I wanted to dive into this topic and how I got here was for a few reasons. First, I've been seeing for a while now a lot of type 1s who are just confused about how to change their body composition, right? And whether that's right or wrong, depending on who you're talking to, right? Some people are going to say, like, you shouldn't want to change your body. Other people are going to say, yes, like, of course, like weight loss can make you feel better about yourself. Other people's words, not mine, right? Whatever it is, like it doesn't change the fact that there are a lot of type 1s who, if they want to do that, their default, if they're confused, is leaning on extreme and often not sustainable ways of doing that can be detrimental to their mental and physical health, whether it's a specific diet or over exercising or whatever it may be. So that's the first thing that I think, has led me to say, all right, I want to sit down and talk to you guys about this. The second thing is when there is fear or just not peace of mind around things like weight or insulin or food, so many people miss out on life and miss out on today and miss out on being present. They are not comfortable with themselves, so they're saying no to maybe going to the beach with friends, or they are out to dinner with people around them and they're, so like nervous about like, oh, what am I going to order on the menu? And, what if they order chips and guacamole and then I'm going to be tempted with it, right? Like all these things that are going on in the back of your head. They're less excited just in general to go to social events because maybe they don't feel good about themselves, or they're just not happy, for whatever reason, and they don't want to, just go home. They go out. They rather just kind of like stay in isolation, right? And so there's this correlation between making peace with all of those things and just increased happiness, right? And at the end of the day, I'm here to help talk to you guys about your diabetes and your mindset, but the why is so that we can lead, we can reclaim our a version of our lives that are filled with more confidence and more happiness and more joy. And we get one life, right? Like one, I mean, depending on what you believe in, right? But like this is our one life that we have in this body. And we don't want to waste it, right? So that's the second part. And then the third part is through my own personal journey with my body and so many of our clients at Risely, I found a really freeing way to relate to weight and help others relate to weight and body image that I think can be helpful to share as an alternative to the common approach, which is going on a diet, cutting calories or carbs, or just any version of that, right? There's so many versions of what that looks like. And ultimately thinking through those things, I'm like, all right, like, got to do a podcast episode about this. And even if we want to pull this back a little bit more, because I do think that this giving you this context can be helpful, why it's taking me so long to put out an episode around this is because from really early on, I never wanted Risely to be a weight loss coaching company. And not even just me, but like being a startup company, right? Like they're the people who are with you on your team from the beginning, right? There's a lot of conversations and a lot of, and I don't think this is, normally this is for everybody, but in the company culture that we have, it's very team oriented. It's not necessarily that my opinion or my voice matters the most, or, it's the be all end all. It's like we're a collective here. We're growing this together. We're focused on making impact. And um, we kind of decided as a coaching team early on that like we don't want to focus on weight loss. And even though we work with both men and women and parents of kids with type 1 diabetes, ultimately the first couple of years women happen to dominate the majority of our clientele. Right now it's a little bit more like, let's say 60-40 or different splits if you add the parents in there, but still more women than men, but not as drastic as a difference as it used to be. And with that, in the early days, right, like seeing a ton of women come into our coaching, it could have been so easy for us to just be like, all right, let's just tack on, weight loss as one of the things that we're, really helping you with when you come into coaching. And also, when you're entering into the diabetes or even just like health service space in general, you see so many nutritionists and personal training companies that are helping people with weight loss because it is something tangible that a lot of people like go to and want to have as a result for themselves, right? It's easier to say, we're going to help you lose 10 pounds than it is to say, hey, we're going to help you completely transform your life and the way that you feel about yourself and think about yourself and think about your diabetes, right? Like ultimately what we've shown at Risely is that actually is possible. And through the stories that we share and the podcast and all of our just things that we put out on social media, right? Like you get to this point where you can understand how that is a little bit more tangible. But I think what I'm getting at here is like the low hanging fruit. It's like easier just to be like, oh yeah, we can also, focus on weight loss as the main goal that you have, because a lot of people, it's a pain point for a lot of people. That's what I'm getting at. Like that is a big pain point. And it's not that those nutritionists or personal training, programs or whatnot are not valuable for some people, because that's not the case, right? It absolutely is a valuable service. But I always felt that the most important thing that was missing and that needed to come before any type of work with your body composition, was happening, was not only helping people improve their blood sugars, but really helping people improve their relationship to their diabetes, their relationship to food, relationship to their body, helping them fill these education gaps, giving them, an opportunity to be surrounded by other type ones, whether it's through the coaches on our team or the broader community or in our group coaching programs, in a really non-judgmental space and way that can create transformations for themselves from a place of empowerment and not a place of shame or hating at themselves and isolation. So that ultimately started off as the intention, right? It's like, hey, like weight loss, great. There are some people that are gonna, go be attracted to that. But what we're about here is really creating change from the inside out. And I really believe that at my core. And so I was like, let's not even, touch weight loss in a way with like a 10-foot pole. Like if somebody, comes in and is like, I am focused 100% on weight loss, like it's like, hey, we can refer you out, but that's not really what we focus on. However, this is where there's like a little bit of a plot twist in how we get to recording this episode on body image and weight loss. Um, we started to see over the years that many coaching members were reporting at the end of their program when they would do their final like survey form that they were reporting weight loss, and they were reporting it with, at the same time, while they were reporting increased self-love and acceptance, a decrease in stress and anxiety, an increase in their relationship to food. And oftentimes when weight loss increases, right, when somebody loses weight, a lot of those other areas can be compromised. And we were like, wait a second, like what's going on here? Like we're not even having people focus on weight loss, but it is a side kind of like byproduct for some people. And that just made me get more curious about, I guess, like how these worlds could coexist for some people. And it made me really question and get clear on my stance on where I fall on my beliefs around all the topics around weight loss and body positivity and health at any size. So today, I've boiled it down to about 3 important pieces that I believe are really important to share around this topic. And this easily could be a very, which it started out as, by the way. This was the original last week, what I wanted to talk more about. It was turning into like a dissertation about like all the science on, the hormones in our body and the, the weight and the this and the that. And it was like, this doesn't, there's already that information out there in a lot of different places. And I wanted this to be like almost like a philosophy episode, and like what I have found to help people simultaneously improve their relationship to their self, their body, and also maybe possibly at the same time for some people change their body composition, but like kind of without even trying. So let's get into it. Okay. So the point number one, the foundational like philosophy point that we need to discuss is that I really believe it's important for us to reframe the body positivity movement. What do I mean by that? So right now we are in, and we have been for many years now, in this era of you should love your body at whatever size it is. And that sounds good in theory, but I don't think that's helpful for many people, and especially for type 1s. And here's how I've come to this conclusion. First, it's unrealistic for a lot of people to go from not like looking at the mirror, looking at themselves in the mirror and not loving what they are seeing, to then just seeing, somebody else in a body shape that is like them, and then just overnight being like, well, they can love or they look happy in their body, so now I can look in the mirror and yes, I love my body too, right? It's a far stretch, like if we're realistically talking about it. Good in theory, realistically, like don't really think that's the case for most people. I definitely think like seeing so many different bodies and following people on social media who just don't look like you, like that is so helpful for just like all of our mental health, like as a collective. But would just hang on with me, and I'll share where I think it needs to go kind of like instead. So, all right, that's the first piece of why I don't think it's helpful for many type 1s to just be in this like full-blown body positivity movement. The second thing is that weight loss can actually be helpful for improving diabetes management, because it helps improve insulin sensitivity, which can help improve our time in range and can reduce, let's say, our risk for cardiovascular issues and other complications and risks as well down the line. So there's that. And the more I think about that, I'm like, yeah, like it definitely is something that is could be helpful for improving blood sugar control and just like your overall health. And then the third one is that when we think about body positivity and what it is, which is like loving your body at like whatever size it is, it insinuates that happiness is tied and linked to our bodies at all times. This episode is brought to you by Omnipod. Many people don't know this, which is why we've partnered with Omnipod to help spread the word. But did you know that if you're curious about trying the Omnipod 5 tubeless wearable system, you can do so with no commitment, no obligation, and even if your current pump is in warranty? Crazy, right? Omnipod truly wants to make it as easy as possible for you to test our new system out and see how great life can be with it. There are so many benefits, my two highlights being that the activity feature sets a temporary higher target for times where less insulin is needed, and it integrates with Dexcom G6 to automatically adjust insulin every 5 minutes. So if you want to get on a pump for the first time, or if you want to have more freedom without a tubed pump, you can see if you're eligible for a free trial by going to omnipod.com/rise. Fill out the quick form and they'll do the work to check insurance coverage for you. You can also view full safety information, instructions for use, and trial terms and conditions at omnipod.com/rise. Now, right back to the show. Okay, so I'll say that again. It's insinuating that our happiness is tied and linked to our bodies at all time, right? It keeps the focus on your body. In one instance, you're looking in the mirror, maybe not loving your body. But then in this other instance, it's just saying, look at your body and say that you love it. So those are kind of like the why reasons why I don't think it's super helpful. So what can we shift body positivity into that can be more helpful for us to focus on instead? And what I believe and what I've seen a lot of conversation around is this idea of body neutrality, which when I understood that concept, I was like, yes, like this is it. And this body neutrality takes the emphasis off of needing to love your body to be happy and instead shifts to just an acceptance of where your body is at any given time and leans more into objectivity. And the reason why I really love this concept is because this is what, we teach and what we promote with Risley with the relationship with blood sugars, right? It's the same thing of we the idea is not to have a 250 out of range high blood sugar and say, well, you're not happy with that, just be positive about it and you can love that, right? Like no, like that's unrealistic. But can we shift to more of a, okay, I'm 250, this doesn't mean that I am a terrible person, this doesn't mean that my self-worth is down because I have an out of range number. Like how can we just look at it with more objectivity, with more curiosity instead of judgment? Another example of this is, um, you know, for for when I go to let's say an event, whether it's like a wedding or a party, or I was on a bachelorette for my best friend this weekend, when I have the choice and I'm putting on a new pump or a CGM, I am more likely than not, if I'm being honest, I'm more likely than not going to put it in an area that is probably covered. I was wearing this weekend these long kind of like silk pants with a crop top, and I changed my pump before we went out that night, and I put my pump on my thigh where I could have very easily put it right on my arm, but I was like, you know what, let me just put it on my thigh here. And the reason why I did that was because I don't know, I was going out. It's not that I guess if it was on my arm, it's not that I am ashamed of it, it's not that I would hate the way it looks, it's just does it need to be out in the open? Like sometimes for me, I'm just having a moment where I'm surrounded by 21 other girls and I'm like, hey, it just, does that mean that I'm not accepting of my diabetes? No, it just is, it's objective, right? I'm just going to put it on my leg. And if it happened to not be a site change day and it was on my arm, once again, I wouldn't be ashamed of it. I wouldn't take it off. I would kind of just roll with it. And that wouldn't have been the case years ago. But kind of just having a little bit more of that, it's okay sometimes to like the way that you look. It's okay to not like the way that you look, but ultimately getting into this place where you're just observing the thoughts and you're not judging it so much. And it's not so much of shame that is attached to wherever your body is at, or wherever your pump site, for example, is at. So what helped me personally kind of get to this point with my body, because I would say for the past 10 years, I've been, anywhere from, I don't want to give exact weight, but if I'm doing the math really quick, I've probably fluctuated 50 points, 50 pounds, within, and falling anywhere in between those 50 pounds. And so, what I've learned in that journey is that, your body is going to change so many times in your lifetime. And if you are somebody who wants to get pregnant, right? Like think about that journey, or think about, just maybe you're going to get sick, or maybe you'll get injured, or maybe you'll just go through a breakup or a really hard work phase where you're not working out as much or taking care of yourself, where it's harder to do that. Whatever it is, like your body's going to fluctuate. Like you cannot keep it constant, right? Um, it's one of those things. It's like the seasons, right? It's fluid, and that change doesn't mean that it's good. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just is. And I got to this point where I didn't want to love, like, only love myself when it was at one certain point that was really like just arbitrary, that I made up in my head, right? So I said, you know what? If my body throughout my lifetime is going to constantly fluctuate, and that is just what's going to happen because it happens to everybody, then like I have to learn. Like I know that that's going to happen for certain. I have to learn to love myself at no matter what stage it's at. And so I shifted the focus from, because I knew it was unrealistic to think that I was just going to control and keep my body at one size for the rest of my life. I shifted my focus on just stopping the act of trying to control that, keeping it at this one point, and instead shifted it to, how do I just become happy no matter where it's at? And I really do think that when we become more neutral towards our bodies, it just takes less pressure off of us, and we make less decisions based out of emotion. An example is like, for some people, if they have like a bagel in the morning and then they think like, oh, I failed because, that's, was unhealthy, or, that's going to make my blood sugar go up, and or it's going to make me gain weight, or whatever that negative thought is. And now the entire day is ruined, right? Your whole mood shifts for the day, and your choices around maybe what you're going to eat for lunch change. And you're no longer in this, oh, this is really important. You're no longer in this place of choosing things to nourish your body. Instead, you're making decisions based off of how you can punish your body. And that is something that you can ask yourself and come back to multiple times throughout the day. Am I making this, is this decision something that is going to nourish me, or is it something that is going to punish me? And just see, what comes up for you as you do that. And so if you are having a hard time getting to a more neutral place with your body, I'd invite you to really ask yourself to explore your relationship with control. Because ultimately, we think that we're in control, but isn't it so more so that like your relationship with your body is more so like controlling you than you're controlling it? Because if you're in control, then wouldn't you not want to have like so much of your thoughts going towards your body, so not so much negative energy and just thoughts and toxicity in terms of your relationship to food, or whatever it may be, right? Like redefine kind of what you want your life to look like and your relationship with yourself to feel like, and then ask yourself if the choices that you're making are supporting that. And just, yeah, pull back the layers a little bit, and see what comes up. And by no means am I saying like it's easy to get to a place of body neutrality, but I will say, like, with full certainty, like that is the place that you do want to get to, because there is freedom that comes from that on the other side. Okay, so that's the first philosophy point. The second one is that once we can practice body neutrality, we can shift the focus away from aesthetics and how our body looks and weight, and onto our overall health and blood sugars. And there's a question that I often ask myself when I'm stuck, when I'm like feeling like, oh, like, why is this so hard? Why, whether it's with work or a personal goal, whatever it is, I asked myself, like, what would this look like if it were easy, right? Because I truly do believe in a lot of my personal development journey over the last decade. Anytime that something has felt like really, really hard, I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm going to set a goal to go do a 10K, which I'm actually doing in a few days. And it's hard. Training is hard. This is uncomfortable. Not I don't want to. The word is not uncomfortable. I'm talking about like hard in terms of like you feel like the door isn't opening, right? You're pushing, 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 and the door isn't opening. Meaning you're, have this goal to lose weight, and you're cutting carbs and you're cutting calories and you're running 5 miles a day, and like nothing's happening. Like, and you're feeling burnt out, and you're not happy, and you're it's not even just tied to the weight specifically, but it's just more so like, yeah, like you're not happy or you don't feel like you're getting to where you want to be and it's feeling hard. Like that's not the right door. You're not doing it right. Like that's, I really do believe that. And this piece here, this philosophy piece, like to me, like this is it. And this is the thing that we've seen over and over and over again with our coaching members. When we tell them, when they come into coaching, we still tell everybody, if you have a goal of weight loss, drop it at the door, right? Like this, you are here to focus on you and your diabetes and your mindset and your numbers and all of those things. That needs to be the priority. Leave the weight loss goal at the door. And then some of them, not everybody, right? But some of them end up reporting back at the end like, whoa, that's crazy. I've been trying to lose weight my whole life. And like I stopped focusing on it and it just happened. And so when we shift the focus to blood sugars and overall health instead of aesthetics, aesthetics sometimes happen a lot of the time as just like a byproduct of the changes that we're making. And some of the changes, that you want to be focusing on are around sleep and stress reduction and relationship to food and reducing alcohol and adding in more whole foods and spending more time outside in fresh air and sunshine and taking breaks during work to go for a walk and understanding your hormones and filling your education gaps, working on just overall holistically all of these different elements. And the thing is as a result of focusing on all of those things, what you see happen for a lot of type 1s is your blood sugars improve, which means you're not having as many highs that you're correcting for and getting on the roller coaster. You're not having as many lows that you're, just treating with like a ton of food and extra, excess sugar, things like that. And on top of it, when you're focused on just your overall health and the goal isn't tied to like a weight and a number that is not going to happen overnight, right? Like you have more momentum and you have more motivation to be consistent because you're not chasing this thing that is like so far away. You're just focused on showing up for yourself on a daily basis because that is what you value, right? This what this comes down to at the end of the day is like what do you value, right? Like if you value your health and your happiness and focus and energy and career and relationships and being present and all of those things, right? Then ask yourself, okay, well, what do I need to do today in order to, elevate in those areas? And, you know, mood and energy, like those are things and focus that you're going to see as a direct result immediately from holistically taking care of yourself. And that's just going to motivate you. And over time, that's just who you're going to become. You are going to become a person who takes care of themselves. And therefore, you may have as a byproduct without even like really intentionally trying, because you're not cutting out carbs and it's not hard in terms of the diet that you have to do. You might change your body composition. I'm going to give you a specific example because I know that's like, okay, Lauren, like let's give me like a specific. So I have a screenshot here that I'm going to read off from a couple rounds of our Decide and Conquer group coaching boot camp ago. So we run the program. It's a group coaching program for women with type 1 diabetes. We have 5 of our type 1 female coaches in the program. And I think we've had 15 rounds, over like 350 people graduate for it. Our next one starts in January of January of 24. And I'm not sure, I think we have a few more like early enrollment, early bird spots open. So you can apply through the website to that. But anyways, this was what she had shared. So at the end of the program, she sent a message to our group Slack channel and said, "Hey everyone, maybe this is not directly related to T1D, but I wanted to share it. I've been trying to lose some weight for a while. However, I began exercising a lot and having lows at different times of the day, particularly at night, leading to an overtreatment of lows. Also, I was very anxious and I had turned to binge eating of sugar-free cookies to calm my stress. Before DCB, my number one goal was to lose those stupid pounds without paying that much attention to the quality of the foods I was eating or the importance of taking a new approach with my T1D that you all offered. A few weeks ago, I committed to set my T1D as a priority at the beginning of this program. And if I had to treat a low, I would do it without thinking that I was exceeding my daily calorie intake. The same thing with my workouts. I stopped stressing about missing workouts because of the things that I needed to prioritize in the program. Today, I decided to step on the scale, and to my surprise, the number went down a lot without starving or killing myself with cardio. All of this because of the change in my nutrition and probably because of the change in my mindset. Sometimes we want to control everything, but in the end, we need patience and to trust the process. So, wanted to share that because we have so many, stories like that. But I think that one pretty much sums up sharing that when you're focusing on your overall health, something like that can change as a byproduct. And once again, it's not that that needs to be the goal, but it's also that we don't need to demonize or shame um, somebody who wants to lose weight, let's say, if it's coming truly from a place of just like not attached to their happiness. It's coming from a place of like you already have this body neutrality, and it's more so, all right, how can we optimize insulin sensitivity, and how can we increase our muscle mass on our body, and become stronger or become faster, right? I really do believe that both can coexist as long as the mental health and body image place is in a good place. And that's why for so many people that foundational work needs to be done. Also, I need to address, this is not like a, not even like on my outline or anything, but just remember everybody is born into different bodies, right? Like I remember in high school, all the group of girls that I was friends with, they had these like, just like body types that were super just like straight, very, very thin and not very curvy by any means. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like I want to look like them, like for whatever reason, right? And we all do this. And I think that's important to remember that like no matter what body type you admire, that person probably is looking at somebody else saying like, oh, I want that body type, right? But at the end of the day, like it's not helpful to want and look at somebody else and say like, oh, I want that, because that's their body, right? Like you have your body and you have your frame and you have yourself. And just remember that like your body at the end of the day truly is the least interesting thing about you. And it, like it's just what you value. But like to me, when somebody walks in the room, I'm looking at their energy. I'm feeling their magnetic presence. I'm maybe looking at like how they're, maybe like styling themselves, but more so how they're carrying themselves. Like that is what you see first is how kind somebody is, right? It's the conversation or what they bring to the table. So wanted to throw that in there as well. Okay. But let's go to the last point here. And this one is something that I was like, all right, we have to talk about this because I hear it so much. And this last point and philosophy piece is like insulin is not something to fear. The age old question is, because I have type 1 diabetes and because I am taking insulin, is that impossible to allow me to lose weight? And is insulin going to make me gain weight? And we have to understand that like the problem is not insulin, period, right? Like we need to give ourselves what we need at any given time. Example, increasing our insulin sensitivity, great goal, but we never want to do that and like not give ourselves at the same time and not meet our bodies with what it needs to serve us in this moment. Meaning, I might be working on my insulin sensitivity just overall every single day, and nothing may change with the amount of insulin that I give myself for whatever reason. But like that doesn't mean that I'm not going to give myself exactly what my body needs in that moment and just change it or think. For example, this is a better example that I was thinking of earlier, but like a lot of times people will say like, oh, like whatever, 10 units for this meal or 5 units for this meal sounds like a lot. So I'm not going to eat that, extra 3 pieces of sushi, and I'm going to pull back because I'm only going to give myself 4, right? Like once again, is that nourishing you, that decision, or is that punishing you? That's mostly coming from a place of like lack and restriction, and not coming from a place of like, let me just, intuitively eat and let me just intuitively live my life and just match my body with what it needs. Because if I didn't have diabetes, my pancreas wouldn't be like, oh, that feels like too much insulin. It would just be like, oh, hey, you're eating that and we're just going to pump this insulin out. So remember that like when it comes down to kind of like the science of weight, there are elements of insulin, of course, like the differences of when it's produced in your body versus outside your body and how we're giving it to ourselves as type 1s. But at the end of the day, like it's really all the other factors around your diet and your hydration and your movement and your stress, reduction, and your gut health and sleep and hormones and all of those things that mostly influence the insulin that is at play there. And so a lot of experts will, agree that insulin is not the problem. Taking insulin is not bad. Taking insulin for the food that you need to fuel your body is not something to fear. Um, yes, in a way, insulin can make you gain weight, just in the way that if you didn't have diabetes, if you were doing things to your body that required more insulin and you were, around activity or food or whatever it is, you would gain weight, right? It's the same thing. It's not specific to because we have type 1 diabetes. So just having like an overall better relationship with insulin, I want to give you permission to do, because for a lot of people, I don't think this is, this is something that is a spectrum, right? Where there can just be, thoughts in the back of your head around, well, I'm just going to eat less. I don't have to give myself more insulin. Or there can be, like bigger measures being taken, which if, that is something where you feel like you have a very unhealthy relationship with insulin, please seek help from, diabulimia treatment centers. There's a diabulimia hotline if you Google it, resources like that, because that can be, very detrimental to your health and really dangerous. But ultimately, wanted to share that generally, like, there's a lot of talk from doctors or even pump trainers that are telling kids and teenagers things like, you're giving yourself way too much insulin. You should really, try to cut back or you're going to gain weight. And it's just like, why are we saying those things to kids, or why are we saying those things, at all? Like, we just need to give our bodies what it needs to keep our blood sugars in range. That needs to be the number one priority. And I truly believe that, like, when we're holistically taking care of ourselves, like everything, is going to fall into place for the most part. So to bring this home, because it is 10 o'clock and I'm losing my voice, but I do think we came ultimately to like a good place at the end of this episode. If you can become more neutral towards your body and focus on your overall blood sugars and health and having compassion for yourself and strengthening your intuition around what serves you, sometimes body composition can change as a result. And that's not bad. That's not good. It just is what it is. So, let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know what parts of this episode hit with you, if anything. I am going to listen to this back, and I'm also going to decide maybe we'll do a part 2 of this, because there's much more that we can dive into at another point in the future. But ultimately, thank you for letting me share, some of my premeditated thoughts on this. Some of it while I was talking, it was just kind of like flowing out. So I appreciate, you holding space for this conversation. I hope it was helpful, and that's all for now. I will see you next week, same time, same place. And until then, happy blood sugars. See you later, guys. Bye. Thank you so much for being here with me today and listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Rise. To let us know that the episodes we're putting out are impactful, and to help us get our street cred up and let everyone else know that this is something worthy of their time to listen to, please leave a rating and review on our Apple Podcast. Send the show to other people impacted by T1D, or maybe even your doctor, and share it on social media, tagging at Risley Health and at Lauren_Bongiorno. New episodes of Reclaim Your Rise come out every single Tuesday, so make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so that you never miss a beat. Thanks again for listening, and as always, remember, diabetes is a challenge that we did not choose, but one that we can rise above.